From Homedale to Salmon River, District 3 has several teams that don't always get their due. Stepping outside the shadows of the SIC, this is the Treasure Valley Prepcast with Logan Green.
That's right. It is another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down all that District 3 action from the 3A, 2A, and 1A schools. Brandon Baney with Logan Green. Logan, how are you?
I'm good. Just getting ready to head on over to you this weekend. Well, today actually is this afternoon. Yeah, it should be a fun weekend for some state championships.
Yes. So a little behind the scenes here. We are recording this on Thursday morning. The first of 6 state championships start tonight in Holt Arena. 2 state championships for football tonight, 3 on Friday, 1 on Saturday afternoon. If you want to see the full schedule of games, of course, IdahoSports.com is going to be broadcasting all of those. Just click on the game streams tab at IdahoSports.com. Logan, in terms of football, I can't, and I've asked everybody this week, I can't think of a weekend where there's like nothing going on in the Treasure Valley. I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, it's dead. I mean, there might be a few secret boys basketball scrimmages, under the table that we don't know about, and maybe a girls game here and there, but it's dead. There's no state championship here. There's nothing. Yeah, it's all is quiet over here in District 3.
And the only team that's playing for a championship from the Treasure Valley is Weezer. They are carrying the torch for the entire Treasure Valley. It's pretty incredible to see that.
Yeah, and they did a great job going on the road and winning, winning that game at Gooding, a game that they really, from what I can tell, had control of early and kept control of that game. They were able to control the tempo and force Gooding to play what they wanted to play and earn themselves a trip to the state championship after a big win over an undefeated school.
Yeah, so me and some of the guys in East Idaho have been joking a little bit this week because, it's always a battle of teams from the Treasure Valley, teams from the East, which area really has the best football teams. I think it's played out this year that the East certainly had the better squads. And we joked, I said, hey, Weezer is the only team that's still competing from the Treasure Valley, and they've got an East Idaho guy coaching them, Tom Harrison, right?
Right, yes. People are always going to look for those arguments in that quote rivalry between the two sides of the state. But I mean, you look at the games this weekend and a lot, like especially that Rigby Meridian game I was at, that could have gone either way. That was just who made the first mistake, or really who made the first defensive play, because nobody could stop the other. And it just happened to be Rigby who made the first defensive play, that knocking a ball out of the hands of a receiver on 4th down, and then they in turn won the game. So they could have gone either way. District 3, really put up a tough fight. You saw Melba go on the road and almost beat North Fremont last week, and then Cole Valley and Nampa Christian played really tight with Bear Lake. But at the end of the day, it's who won the game. And like you said, this year, East Idaho has the upper hand so far. Of course, Weezer has a lot to say about that this weekend, and I think they have a really good shot. I know that I picked Homedale. I think everybody picked Homedale to beat Sugar, but Homedale, they could not move the ball, and that was something me and Wayne talked about before the game. Was what was going to be the difference? Was it going to be Sugar-Salem's run defense, or was it going to be the run game of Homedale? And it turned out to be the run defense of Sugar-Salem that really played the factor in that game.
Yeah, and we'll dive into that game in a little bit. Let's start with Weezer, because they're the team that's still competing. They had to travel to Gooding on Friday night, and you're right, Logan. This was a game that they pretty much had on cruise control from start to finish. They end up winning the game by a final score of 49-27. And talking to Scott Burton, who was on the call for that game for IdahoSports.com, he said, really, Weezer lined up in that Maryland I formation where there's 3 backs in a line behind the quarterback, and Gooding just could not stop the running game.
Yeah, they have a great run game, couple of great backs back there for Weezer. You think about Brett Spencer and Willie Shirts. They can just put anybody they want back there. I mean, those two are kind of the workhorses, but you throw anybody else back there and they're going to pick up a first down more times than not.
Yeah, and Brett Spencer, rightly so, has gotten a lot of the attention and credit for this Weezer team. He's the senior quarterback, has a has an offer from the University of Idaho to play football for the Vandals. And I think two things go under the radar when it comes to the Spencer name. First of all, as good as he is at quarterback, he might be an even better defensive back. He was an all-state defensive back last year, and I almost put him in our top 10 defensive backs in the entire state of Idaho, but I thought it would look weird to have him on quarterback and defensive back. So that's the number one thing. Number two is I don't even think he's the most important player. I think the guy that's really come up big for Weezer in this playoff run is his younger brother, Brock Spencer. He's made so many great plays at wide receiver. In the game 2 weeks ago against Snake River, he returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. He has been an electrifying player for Weezer, and he's really come on.
Yeah, when you can have an electrifying player like that, that's a huge thing to be able to take back the opening kickoff for a touchdown. It can deflate a crowd. It can deflate another team. It's just a gut punch coming out of the gate. And so if you have a player that can do things like that, it's a huge game changer, a huge momentum swing to be able to have somebody that can do that. The 7 points is 7 points, right? If you go on an 80-yard drive or if you run back a kickoff. But I think there's a little different sentiment when you run back a kickoff. It's truly a punch to the gut. And when you can have a player that can do that, that's an X factor. It can make a huge difference in a playoff run.
Yeah, so that really buoyed Weezer 2 weeks ago in that win over Snake River. Speaking of Snake River, Weezer's coach, Tom Harrison, of course, legendary coach in the state of Idaho, won, I think it was 8 state championships at Snake River in the 90s, won a title at Pocatello. I think he's got 10 titles total, probably the winningest coach in Idaho history. And it's been incredible to watch what he's done in a short amount of time with a Weezer program that's been good, but historically, hasn't been a big player in terms of state championships. So it's nice to see this turnaround for Weezer High.
Yeah, and it's slowly been brewing for them. A couple of years ago, they not much was expected of them, and Paul and I went out there to Weezer and did a game against Gooding. Weezer Gooding, there you go again. But this was back in the Shane Jennings day of Gooding, and they were supposed to come in and roll all over Weezer, and Weezer comes away with a big win there. And then that was maybe where you start to think, hey, what does what does Weezer have rolling here? They won this big game, and then sure enough, they've been able to make it into the playoffs last couple of years and finally taken that final step forward. Of course, they did lose to Homedale this year, but it's a wash when you get in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what happened before that. You just win what's in front of you, and that's what they've done so far. Won their home games, won their road game last week, and now they get to go to Holt Arena for a state championship.
Yeah, so the first semifinal game was Friday night, and Weezer won that game. And I think everybody thought, okay, we're going to have a rematch of Weezer and Homedale, that game that Homedale won 14-6 in the regular season, 2 district rivals going at it. This is going to be great. But then Saturday came, and Homedale didn't advance. They lost to Sugar-Salem. So what we'll do is we'll take a break. We'll hear from our sponsors from D.L. Evans Bank. This is Community Banking. We'll come back and recap what happened in that Homedale Sugar game because you were at that game, Logan. I'm very interested to hear what you thought ahead of the championship preview Friday night. So we'll take a break. We'll come back and talk about Homedale and Sugar-Salem and that other semifinal from last week right after this on the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
Wherever you are, D.L. Evans Bank is right there to help. From applying for loans to opening new accounts and signing documents, personalized service is just a video call away. This is Bank Live with D.L. Evans Bank. This is Community Banking.
Back on the Treasure Valley Prepcast, IdahoSports.com, Brandon Baney with Logan Green, both wearing our hoodies today. You've got Carolina Panthers, right?
I do.
Go ahead and show it off.
I know. I love Cam Newton. I know he rubs some people the wrong way, but I love that man, and so it's great to have him back. And that was I woke up my 2-year-old taking a nap when Cam rumbled in for that first touchdown last week. So yeah, I'm unapologetic. I love Cam. and I don't care who hates me for it. But yeah, he's awesome. Anyway,
I'm shocked that when I introed you on the podcast today, you didn't yell, "I'm back."
I know. I'm back. Those memes have been hilarious. People have thrown them. They're really good. Like I saw one. There's a fried chicken place back there called Bojangles. If anybody knows I'm like, I would be a spokesperson. If they were in Idaho, they'd be our sponsor 100%. Even if they weren't paying, I'd put them on anyways, they tweeted out, they're like, we know why he's really back. And they tweeted out the I'm back thing with a big bucket of Bojangles chicken. And I'm like, that would be me right there. That's where I always stop when I go. But yeah, no, great to see him back. Now, obviously, this isn't concern anybody in District 3, but concerns me. So
yes, Logan, a long-standing diehard Carolina Panthers fan. My hoodie is Montana Grizzlies. This is the big week, Logan. Up in Montana. It's Montana.
It's a little disappointing game day didn't go. I know they were making a push to have game day go there, but I mean, the Big Sky. I feel like you could bump the Big Sky up to the FBS level, and they'd hang around. I mean, clearly Montana beat Washington, and how many Big Sky teams? So here, okay, Brandon. Sorry, this is a not relevant to this either, but the transitive property, right? The so-and-so beat so-and-so,
right?
You can follow it back for Idaho State to beating Alabama. So I just crowned the Bengals champions right now, right?
How could you possibly? Idaho State only has one win.
Exactly. So they beat UC Davis, who beat Tulsa, who beat Memphis, who beat Mississippi State, who beat Mississippi State beat Texas A&M, and then Texas A&M beat Alabama. So transitive property, give it to the Bengals. Hey, and if the Vandals can beat them this weekend, Vandals headed to the college football playoff. If they don't put them in, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, you look at the top 25, and at times this year, there's been up to 5 teams from the Big Sky in the top 25. I mean, that's 25% of the poll right there.
Well, right now it's like 5 of them. There's 5 in the top 11, or maybe it's 4. I mean, it's just stacked. It's crazy. Big Sky is legit. It's too bad. It's too bad they didn't go. Game day didn't show up there this year.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever a serious consideration. I think they wanted it, but ESPN, I don't think it was ever really on their radar. So anyways, Montana and Montana State playing this week in college football. The reason I bring this up is it's in a long roundabout way to say that, hey, if you want to see our hoodies, you want to see this Montana hoodie, you want to see that Carolina Panthers hoodie, you can watch the video of this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page. You can also get the audio-only version of this podcast at IdahoSports.com and wherever you download your podcasts. All right, we'll climb out of the rabbit hole here, Logan. We'll get back
about that.
We'll get back to 3A football. So we talked about Weezer advancing to the championship game, and everybody thought, okay, Weezer made it. Homedale's next. Well, Saturday they lose to Sugar-Salem. I think it was 16-7, right?
Yep, 16-7, and it's just and on the Wayne and I were there doing the broadcast, and that one thing, and I mentioned it earlier, was that what's the difference? Sugar was only giving up, I think, something like 68 yards in game on the ground, and Homedale was rushing for over 300. So something had to give there, and it turned out to be the run game of Homedale. The first drive of the game, Homedale, and I tell you what, I've never been in a game where there were such long possessions. By the time Homedale was done with their first possession, there was 5 minutes. I mean, it was long possessions. I think each of them had 2 or 3 in the first half. It was they keep the ball for a long time. But Homedale went down, and they did it through the air. Is how they scored on their first drive. They ran, and then a big play a pass play across the middle, picked up most of those yards, about a 40-yard pass play from Jackson Dines, and that's kind of what set up the touchdown. Then the touchdown was through the air as well. It was a short pass to the left side into the end zone, which was also aided by they failed on 4th down on that drive, got bailed out with a penalty, and came back and scored. But it happened through the air, and that was the first drive of the game for Homedale, and then they didn't score the rest of the way. They had some chances, but really could never get a long sustained drive going again. They did get one towards the end of the half, and then they didn't convert on fourth down. They needed to get to the 10-yard line and got to about the 11. Very close to getting that one in. And man, that's one that I'm sure Homedale would like to have back. But Sugar-Salem did a great job at containing and not, they almost said, we'll let you pass on us, but we will not let you run. And you saw them try to throw the ball a lot, and they just, it wasn't a position they had bit. It just they hadn't been there often. I think Jackson Dines only threw for 1,000 yards on the season, not because he's a bad quarterback, just because that's the way their offense flows, is on the ground. And Sugar came back and scored. They scored 2 touchdowns before the half to make it 13-7. And then Sugar kicked a field goal with about a minute and a half to go, something like that. Not a lot of time left on the clock. Maybe it was 2.5 minutes to make it a 2-possession game. But, I mean, it was right there the whole game for them. It was within a possession the entire game up until those final 2 minutes. And they just could not get it going on the ground, and they could not get it going through the air. That Sugar-Salem defense just swallowed them. And credit, I thought the break would be the defense of Sugar. And that's my crow to eat right there, was that I thought that Homedale was going to get through and run all over them, and clearly they did not.
Sugar-Salem has a really good front seven. Boyd Sorensen at defensive end, Ryan Harris at linebacker in particular. And I agree with you. I think their secondary is a little shaky. And so 2 weeks ago, they played Marsh Valley in the quarterfinals. And Marsh Valley is a team that likes to throw the ball. And they had a lot of success. They had the lead the entire first half, Marsh Valley did, and almost won the game. Sugar escaped. Sugar seems to be escaping a lot lately. I think their defense is so good, and it has to be, because their offense, quite frankly, has been putrid, at least what I've seen. I don't know what your thoughts are about Sugar-Salem. I think this is a great matchup for Weezer, because Weezer is a team that likes to throw the ball, and Sugar is a team that really has struggled to score a lot of points.
Yeah, the offense was not – I mean – Homedale's defense is very good. They held Weezer to only 6 points. So, if you look there and say, they ran into a tough defense, but they did not. The offense, they had some, they had some room for improvement. I thought it was just a slugfest that game, and it was weirdly warm. It was almost 60 degrees. Like, we were hot there in the stands at Homedale. It was very warm. And I don't know if people were expecting that or not, but I really like the matchup that Weezer gets here. I think the Spencer brothers might be the difference this time. You can say, well, so-and-so beat so-and-so, so so-and-so should beat so-and-so, right? You can say that all day. We just talked about it, right? ISU is not going to beat Alabama. It's not going to happen. Transitive property tells you yes, but you look at Homedale beat Weezer, and then Sugar beat Homedale. But I think that it's matchups. And I really think that, like you said, that secondary for Sugar versus the passing game of Weezer, that might be the matchup to watch in this game. And two, Homedale likes to run it up the gut. They weren't spreading it wide with their run game. Dines wasn't running much in the option at all. And you see Weezer do that a little bit more. They like to spread it and get up and down more than left and right. So you might see them using that to their advantage, getting out and spreading that Sugar-Salem defense out a little bit, and maybe finding some gaps in the secondary when they open up.
Yeah, I think this matchup just sets up really well for Weezer. At the same time, Sugar-Salem's kind of got that mystique around them. They just they'd be going for their 4th consecutive 3A championship, which is just unheard of at any level in the state of Idaho. But should be a great game. And that game will be Friday night. It will be at 5:30,
right?
Yeah, let me double check. The times are so weird, dude. There's a game kicking off at 9:00 tonight. The 2A championship kicks off at 9:00. Who thought this was a good idea? 9:00 on a school night.
On a Thursday night. And what kind of, my opinion, I don't know how it's fair to Weezer to play on a Friday at 5. How is it fair to their community to travel. Yeah, I always hear East Idaho people griping about having to travel somewhere, but how about Weezer having to travel? It's about, from Weezer, it's about an hour from my house, and then, roughly 3.5. It's almost 5 hours on a bus to get to Pocatello from Weezer. On a Friday, like for those people that they have work and jobs in that community, I'm sure would love to travel to the game, and it just puts them in a tough spot. And it's because that Idaho and ISU are playing on Saturday. They're at the Dome, and the way the rotation's set up is that most of the games are in East Idaho this year, just based on the rotation. And that's another thing. I think people need to look at those rotations. It's fair. It rotates every year. It just, the way it works out sometimes is that they all end up in one place and they all end up in another. It's not out to slight anybody or favor anybody. It's just a rotation. Maybe the Treasure Valley teams, the year that it's in the Treasure Valley, they don't win. And so it moves over somewhere else. It could potentially be in the same place year after year if it's, based on the rotation. So anyway, that was just a soapbox thing. It's
well, part of that too
set,
is that three of the 4 games are featuring teams from East Idaho. It's an all East final, right? Highland and Rigby, Oakley and Raft River are considered East according to the IHSAA, and then you have Firth and Westside. So when it's 2 East teams, it automatically goes to the East. I think a lot of those games would have been other places, but again, the East was so strong this year that they end up getting all the spots. So.
Yeah, I think the 5A one, because it was in the East last year, it wasn't set to host unless it was in East. And that's another one. Like Rocky Mountain had to go to Rigby last year, and they won it. So, it's not set up to disadvantage anyone. But yeah, there's a lot of games at Holtz Arena this weekend. I mean, between high school football and college football, it's going to be quite the day at Holtz Arena.
Yeah,
it's weekend, I guess.
It's going to be a lot of fun at Holtz Arena for sure. Last point I'll make, and then we can kind of wrap things up. With Weezer traveling and playing the first game, they do that so Weezer can then turn around and get home at a decent hour, right? If they're going there 5 hours, they got to go drive 5 hours back, and so they want to make sure they're not getting home at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So that's why they get the early game. And then they have the local teams that are a little closer play the late game. I do kind of get that.
Yeah, I guess if it was a Saturday at 1 o'clock, that would have been
right.
I guess that would have just been it couldn't have happened this year based on how there's a game at Holtz Arena. But it'll be interesting. Thursday state championships. That's at 9 o'clock tonight. That sounds late. But like you said, it's Firth and Westside. Those 2 schools are 45 minutes from Holtz Arena. So
so
not too much of a concern for them, but
anyway. it'll be a lot of fun. So that 3A championship Friday, 5:30, Holtz Arena, Weezer against Sugar-Salem. 4 seed versus a 3 seed. Weezer will be the home team in that matchup, despite being further away from Holtz Arena than Sugar is. Okay, real quick, Logan. I kind of hate how the seasons overlap because you had girls basketball open their season last weekend, and it just got completely overshadowed by the football semifinal stuff. In Montana where I live, or where I grew up, they wait till football's done, and then they run girls and boys basketball concurrently together. There's not this 2-week overlap that exists.
Right. Yeah. And, obviously they do it because football's still playing and the girls are done. All their sports are wrapped up. So why not? But like you said, I think their first couple of weeks kind of fly under the radar because people are busy with this. And I mean, I've been looking around, seeing some scores from around the area, and one that I noticed, and we'll talk more about basketball. We'll do our basketball previews in a couple weeks. But just a quick dipping our toe in the pool here is a couple of games involving Parma. Parma, perennial state tournament team. They seem to always be in the mix. They're always there. But they got beat twice this week by 2A schools. Melba, of course, and that's one. Obviously, Melba was in the state championship last year. they're going to play anybody at a high level, no matter the level of competition. And Melba beat Parma last week, or this week. I'm mixing up the days here. They beat them in the last week, and then Coal Valley Christian did as well. So the Chargers coming on strong, looking really good this year with a big win over a powerhouse 3A squad. So we'll have a lot to talk about when it comes to girls basketball coming up here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I know Matt Beglinger, the head girls basketball coach at Coal Valley Christian, is pretty excited about his team this year. He thinks he's got a good squad, and I tend to agree. But yeah, Melba, Parma, Coal Valley, all three, I think will be at state, playing this year.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of teams that are always there and do well. You think of Rimrock, who seems to always be there as well, and they're a great team. It should be interesting to see. We got a lot of good teams here in District 3. You just pin right there on Melba, though, to start with, how they made that run to the state championship last year. And they're going to be looking to go back, but to bring home the different colored trophy.
That's right. So, yeah, girls basketball off and running. Football will wrap up this week. Programming note, next week, we're going to take the week off. It's the week of Thanksgiving. A lot of people are traveling, and this is a good natural stopping point for us to kind of take a week off and reset and recharge. Logan, we've been doing this every week since the start of August. I don't know if you realize that or not.
No, I have not. That's a long time. So hopefully nobody's too tired of listening to us.
Right. Yeah. If you only get a weekly dose of us, I think it's okay. Every day, though,
small doses.
I don't know. For sure. So we'll have no podcast next week for the Thanksgiving break. We'll come back in 2 weeks and really start diving into basketball and wrestling and all those great winter sports. So Logan, safe travels over to Pocatello for the championships, and have a happy Thanksgiving too. What are your plans for Thanksgiving?
I think we're going to do just like a day trip. My sister-in-law, they live in Idaho Falls. So we're going to, most of my wife's family, a lot of them are from Rigby, Manan area. So I think we're going to go, just to my sister-in-law's. They live in Idaho Falls. So not a long, just a there and back trip.
Cool. Yeah, it's going to be a lot.
And Brandon, what are you doing?
So I'm from Montana, as I've said numerous times on this podcast. So we are going back to Montana. My wife and I will go back to Montana, see our family up there. We're kind of the outliers. We're like the only people in the family that don't live in Montana anymore. So we always have to travel to see them.
You have to go to them, right?
Yeah, that's how that works. So yeah, it'll be
nice. It'll be fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to some days off from work, right?
Yes, for sure. So yeah, we'll take a week off. We'll come back in 2 weeks with another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy the championship games this weekend. For Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.